misperceptions that have occurred. I feel like the alumni have not gotten the full story. I feel like they've gotten twisted stories, and what I just heard from Daphne is not all the truth. And I cannot sit and have somebody give those misperceptions and try to undermine what the truth is. So I feel like I need to explain and say, and advocate for myself, because I take offense that the misperceptions are out there. So let me tell you, I'm not here to have this argument with you. I just want to put out how this began. So when I came to VSDB 10 years ago, it was very much two schools on one campus. Nancy Armstrong had decided the year before I came that she was going to put the deaf and the blind in the same buildings. That was when the 4-year renovation project was finished. She had even asked me about that because we would see each other at a conference every summer. And she asked me, what do you think of this idea? We're getting ready to finish the 4-year renovation project. I'm thinking about putting these two schools in the same building because that had never been done. Those schools were very much separate, and those schools didn't interact at all. And I wasn't even thinking of coming up here for a job. That was way before that. And I told her, I thought it was a great idea. She said, well, the deaf can't communicate with the blind, they're going to trip over the canes, and the blind can't communicate with the deaf. And I said, they're kids, they figure it out. When I became superintendent, I was principal for 1 year. Nancy retired, as well as Mary Murray. That was a full leadership change. I was moved into interim superintendent. Even when I was principal, I saw the inequity between the deaf and the blind. I saw that, and I had the blind department come to me and say, we feel like second-class citizens. The deaf are running everything. At that time, the deaf numbers were higher than the blind, and this was just part of what had happened with VSDB. When I became superintendent, at my very first all-employee meeting, which we have every year when the employees come back, I said, I understand that there are feelings of inequity here. I am here to tell you this is going to be equal. I don't care if there's 2 deaf and 10 blind, or 10 blind and 2 deaf. Everyone is valued on this campus equally. And so I have been preaching what we call, and I started calling it one school. I have been preaching one school for 10 years. I understand that there's a misperception that as we moved forward, and literally there were instances between, if I wore black and red, people came up and said, oh, you're supporting the Cardinals, you're supporting the deaf. And I'm like, no, I wear black and red. I wear it. When we had cakes every year for the VSDB birthday, I can remember 2 years, we had 2 sheet cakes. God forbid did they not have both colors on there. I can remember going out and Kroger had done the cakes, and there were either, I can't remember now, either both were blue or both were red. And I went out and got something and added whatever color was missing, because heaven forbid if you had only one of the colors represented. Because then people were like, you like the blind better than us. We like the deaf better than us. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. So, as we move forward, the misperception that's out there, because I've seen it. I don't look at the social media, to be honest with you, because I don't have the time. I have other things to do to focus on my job, which is 24/7 and extremely life-consuming. But in the recent social media, because I had it sent to me, somebody said that I was the one that took the cardinal and put the Indian chief on it. Okay? I don't know what you can call that thing. That would be the perfect mascot, the cardinal with the Indian headdress on it. But I didn't do that. That was not even my idea. That occurred right when I became, probably in 2015, because Faithlyn Robinson, who is an alumni, who taught here, who we all love and cherish and respect, she saw the value in trying to bring equity and equal value to these students. She saw that. She put it on the front of the card of the yearbook in 2016. She's the one that came up with that emblem, whatever you want to call it. It was not a mascot. It was her effort in trying to blend and represent equally both departments. We didn't have, and you listen to the words I'm using. When I got here, there were 2 schools. When I took over as superintendent and started preaching one school, we were 2 departments in the same building. We didn't put the kids in the classrooms together because we all know the deaf have their own needs. They have their own language. The blind have their needs. So I don't care what West Virginia has done. I've heard this too. I understand West Virginia has blended in the classrooms. We are not doing that. What we do here is in the best interest of the students. And that is not in the best interest of the students. So I'm being videotaped, it's being written down. VSDB is not merging classrooms. We are not doing that. Now, if there's a student that needs both services, a deaf-blind student needs deaf and blind, then we work with that. If there's a student that requests, and this is the difference from y'all's time, where 2 schools never the twain shall meet. They didn't mix, they didn't interact. VSDB's culture is very different now. And when a student says, if a deaf student who has enough hearing to appreciate music wants to go to a music class in the blind department, and they come and say, I want to go to the music class, can I do that? We don't say, oh no. There is this line, there is this barrier there, and oh no, we can't do that. We give them an interpreter because the student has an interest, and we let them try the music class. We had 3 low vision students who were in the blind department wanting to play basketball before COVID. They played on the deaf team with a deaf coach, with deaf players for 2 years. They would never have had that chance in public school. But they have a chance here at VSDB to do that, and we put an interpreter in there. This program is driven by the students. It's not driven by the adults. It is driven by the students. And if they have something that they want to try to do, we empower them to do it. We do not put those barriers up or keep those barriers up that were already there. We empower them to do it. And that is what the culture is of VSDB now. We've got blind students learning sign language. Also, when I came, there was blind staff dorm and deaf staff dorm. And they never mixed. They never interchanged. I immediately started them cross-training, which was wonderful. They cross-trained for one. It gave us more ability to cover if somebody was out. But the beautiful thing of it is the blind students were learning from the deaf, and the deaf students were learning from the blind and that staff. And that we've got students now that are so proud of themselves. They may not be fluent, but those blind students can sign, and those deaf students, they communicate with each other. It's wonderful. The only place you don't see the interaction is in the cafeteria. Because typically the cafeteria, the deaf kids go to one end and the blind go to the other. But I'm telling you, those kids know each other. They help each other. They don't see blue and white or red and black on them. They help each other. So when I started preaching over these years, this year at the all-employee meeting that we have every year, this was the right time that we could move forward with the VSDB one, and was still called it the one school plan. I brought that up. I've been talking about it. This was nothing new. Everybody's been hearing it for 10 years. I'm going back to the colors. That's where, with the whole cake thing and all of that stuff about the colors, that's where we unofficially took red and blue. And I'll be honest with you, I can't remember if that was me or Faithland, or I can't remember where that came from. But we took red and blue and made purple, and that became our unofficial color. Because it was another way, another step forward to try to bring some inclusiveness and equality so that these students had that. The new website is purple. It will be changed as soon as we do this process. We are encouraging the students to keep the red and the blue because it values the history. The problem is that as we are moving forward with the process, so my all-employee meeting, I showed the whole timeline of what we had thought we were doing. We knew we needed consultants, so we wanted consultants that had already experienced VSDB. The consultants that are helping us now helped us do the 5-year strategic plan. They met with everybody. They understood our students. They understood VSDB. They are neutral. They're doing a good job. When we started the plan, I showed, as I said, in the all-employee meeting that was in July, and then we just kind of started working. Things got delayed because of later on because of just COVID and that type of stuff. However, when we brought it up, Daphne was the one who told me you ought to. She was in support. So this, I don't understand this flipping. She was in support of this. She felt it was time. I went to Daphne because I brought Daphne on both boards. I knew Daphne from before, and I respected her opinion. So I went and I talked to her. And she said, you need to contact the Alumni Association president. I totally got it. I connected with Michelle. Michelle and I have always had a good relationship. And I met with the board. I did the same thing with the blind president and the blind board. Michelle, I remember Michelle in our first conversation, I don't even know if I think you said, I didn't remember that they had the chiefs. And so I talked to the board. The board at that time, I explained to them, they were in support. Now, what I've heard is that Michelle, that's not me, no offense to you, Michelle. Michelle and the board don't speak for all the alumni. But I'm sorry, all of the alumni are all over the United States. All of the alumni, many of them don't have any idea what's going on here now with VSDB. They have no idea of the expertise that's here, of the programs that we have developed. We have the only program in the state that is the independent living apartments. The only one. Our transition program is the strongest anywhere in the state. And I will put it up against any deaf or blind school. I will put our programs up here against any deaf and or blind school. Because we are the leaders. We are getting national and international attention for what we're doing here. You may have a core of alumni who are kept in touch through Michelle and the Alumni Association because I meet with them on a regular basis. Like I do the blind, I give them updates. I'm there to answer questions. I am available. My cell phone is with me 24/7. It is my personal cell phone. I answer it 24/7. At 4:30 this morning, Randy's wife texted me to tell me he had passed away. So I don't want anybody to say, you cannot contact me. And what I think happens is that and I used this analogy the other day, there is this lake, and you've got a stone, and you drop the stone in, and you know how it ripples? This center is the core of the alumni that really know what's going on here. They know what's going on. But then as it ripples out, the story gets changed so that the alumni that are out here that aren't involved, I had one lady email me, said she was going to come today. I don't know know she's here. She lived 3 hours away and said she hasn't been here for 18 years. And that's sad. It saddened me today that all of y'all are here, and I can't go give you a daggone tour and show you what's going on here because the students are on campus. I have given up more Saturdays than I can count to stay in town. I'm from Richmond. My family, my boyfriend's in Richmond. I have stayed on campus on Saturdays to give tours to alumni because it's that important, because we want you to know what's going on. Because I am dedicated to this job. I work 14, 16 hours a day. So I don't want anybody giving the impression that I don't understand. I'm a Gallaudet graduate. Yancey and I go, where's Yancey? Yancey and I go way back to Gallaudet. As we moved forward, Daphne, I listened to her advice. I talked to the alumni, to the boards. Then I decided I need Rocco. I reached out to Rocco. I talked to Daphne first because we would have meetings. There was nothing in the timeline, as Daphne stated. There was nothing in the timeline about an advisory group. We didn't even call it an advisory group. She called it an advisory group. I'm the one, once I reached out to the alumni, I reached out to Rocco. And then I told Daphne, I'm reaching out to Rocco, and we met, and it was Rocco and Daphne and the principal, I think, and myself, or maybe Daphne and I started off meeting with Rocco by just the three of us. I can't remember now, because we had lots of meetings, and we started pulling in people. We started pulling in people to get input. Rocco, which I highly respect, he also was supportive in the beginning. He was supportive of it. He explained to me that wonderful history that I'm glad he explained again about the mascot. So I'm a little surprised, I'll be honest, to hear that now he's not supporting it, and that's fine, it's his choice. But it would have been nice to have some sense that he changed his mind. As we went through the process, and the last meeting that I met with Daphne, the whole time I've got this group. So the group is we're emailing. And I've got this group. So I've got Daphne in it, Michelle's in it, the JH is in it, John Pleasance is another board member for the foundation and was on advisory board, on the board of visitors. Who? Carolyn, thank you. Carolyn Sue, president of the Alumni for the Blind Association. Okay? I had people in there. So this was my little email group. I didn't call it the advisory board. It was the email group of people we had pulled in, and I kept them in touch. And I said, okay, this is what's going on. This is what's going on. I sent out timelines before I even showed them to anybody else. That group got the timelines first. And then the last email I had, and before that, the last meeting I had with Daphne, we walked out to the parking lot together and talked, and she says, don't worry, I've got your back. And I'm going, okay, great. Then that email, I started having concerns that the process itself that needed to be neutral was not going to happen. We started the process off saying that there was going to be, that we were looking at, the goal was one mascot. Sorry. I'm an interpreter myself, so I know I'm not easy to interpret for. So the mascot itself, the goal was to have a shared mascot. Daphne's the one who said, people are confused because you call it the one school plan, which created the confusion about, oh, we're going to put all the kids in the same classrooms. She is the one who named it Unified VSDB. I said, I got it. Unified VSDB. We changed the name to Unified VSDB. This whole time, she's involved in the process and she's supporting it. I sent an email out saying I was concerned about not being able to keep neutral. I said, I know, and Jenny knows I love her dearly, I know that our alumni and people were in the deaf department and they were front-loading the kids. And I wanted to be a neutral process. The blind, just so that you know, we want to talk about equality, In the deaf department, we have got David Owens, wonderful, fantastic teacher. I know he's generationally deaf. We have got Jenna Lee Fletcher, one of the best teachers for ASL and with those kids I've ever seen. We don't have any alumni in the blind department. They're not teaching. So as they're rallying the kids and preparing the kids, and now all of a sudden everybody's, doing cardinal stuff, which is fine, but it was they always have done that, but it was much more at a higher level. There's nobody over here rallying the blind department, and the blind department only had 2 teachers who were from the old times when I first came. 2. No alumni. So the alumni had an advantage to trying to get this process influenced, because you had alumni on the inside. The blind department didn't have that. So again, another equality. So I was concerned about keeping it neutral. And my last email that I sent out to my group, that last email that I had for the group, I said, I'm concerned about the neutrality. It may be, we may not be able, where we started off saying, maybe we can blend something. Maybe one idea was, maybe we can take the cardinal and put some blue feathers on it, or somehow merge that. It still isn't equal. And in that last email I said, I'm concerned about the neutrality. It may be we may have to take both the cardinal and the chiefs off the table. Now, somewhere in these email chains, Daphne, I don't know what happened, there was a misunderstanding, and she stopped communicating and started really criticizing me heavily in those emails. It came out of the blue. I said, Daphne, if you've got a problem, let's talk about it. What happened? I don't know what happened from going to, I've got your back, to now, you've done this, this, and this. And I'm like, and nobody else in that email group understood.
If we can wrap up the comments here.
Okay, but this is important because this is my only time to set the record straight, and I will. I'm watching the clock.
Thank you.
So,
I think for us or our listeners, direct comments to us in terms of what do we need to know.
you need to know all of this, and I understand Senator Hess, but they need to know.
So we need to show respect for Senator Hashmi.
The issue is that I offered to meet, and the point of this whole thing is that I offered to meet, I offered to figure out what was wrong, and then all of a sudden, there's no communication. So I reached out. So this is what I'm trying to say. There were lots of opportunities, but this wasn't just a black and white. To reaching out to that group, this group, that I was trying to get guidance from.
If we're not going to have a back and forth
Right.
exchange. If you have any comments, please direct them to the chair, and then we will allow the superintendent to respond. But please direct all comments to the chair.
So I basically just want to say, that's why the process became what it was. And the idea of empowering the students and pulling it out from the students and getting their input. We wanted the process neutral, and the students are the ones that we were trying to help facilitate that process and empower them to have their voice and for the process to be neutral. So I just wanted to clear up some things because this is the only chance that I have to do it, and hearing the misrepresentations and misunderstandings is something that, as hard as I've worked, I don't think that's fair. So I wanted to at least be able to tell my side of the story and how the process went, and the consultants have been, their goal is neutrality. And the only people in those work groups with the students will be the consultants, Tammy Waddell, because she's worked with all of the students, deaf, blind, and deafblind, and the interpreters and interveners. No other adults will be in those work sessions. So I fully understand the passion and the emotions with the cardinal. I totally get it. But I also have to think about the best interests of the students and give them a chance to have a voice and to empower them, because it's their right.